Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special bonus edition of the Hoots Podcast. It's yours truly, Joshy. You can follow me on Twitter at the Hoots Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast right now so you never miss an episode. And the Hoots Podcast comes to you free of charge every single Thursday on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get your podcast from. Also, want to make sure you guys know to bookmark ProWrestlingTranscriptions.com. And this is a little bonus series that I'm doing here in the Hoots Podcast, where it's called Catch It Up, where I reach out to my colleagues and do wrestling podcasts or people who actually work in the professional wrestling industry. And I'm blessed to have one of my good brothers who actually works in the wrestling industry on the program with me today. His name is Referee Tony S. He is from the TBD Wrestling Podcast. And he's a good brother of all good brothers. He's joining me here. This is the first time I'm interviewing Tony. He had me on as his guest on his podcast, the TBD Wrestling Podcast, which you subscribe to right now, damn it. And Tony's on the show. What's going on, my man?
J. Pez Ross, it's about time that we were able to come together and have this little sit-down session here. I'm ready to rock and roll. I know the people out there that are listening that are able to come along for the ride. As somebody, a Hall of Famer, would say, all you got to do is strap on the rocket and go for a ride.
For full disclosure, Tony's not the guy behind the hacker videos from WWE.
No, I'm not.
Wondering why he's not on camera. We talked about it earlier, so it's all good. As long as you hear his voice, that's what's important.
That's it. Yep, that's it, man. It's not.
I don't know why anybody want to look at me anyway. So,
well, it's your show. It's not my show.
Correct. Yes.
There you go. There you go, pal.
God damn. We're doing it live. Let's do it live.
Let's do it live. Let's do it live.
Tony, before we get into like wrestling and stuff, we're gonna run to a bunch of different places. We don't really have a format here, but I do want you to start off and letting people know where they could find the TBD Wrestling Podcast and tell everybody about yourself.
All right, well, let's start off with the first part of the question. TBD Wrestling Podcast is a new podcast starring Matt McCole, because it really is his show. I'm just paying rent.
Right.
You can follow him at Matt McCool24. You can follow me because I'm really the one behind it. You can follow me at Referee Tony S. I'm on all social media platforms, multi social media platforms, but there's only one. And that's the Referee Tony S. Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. You know how the cool kids do it.
Right.
The TBD Wrestling Podcast, you can follow on Twitter at TBD_wrestling. It's really just, Matt McCool and myself. We have a conversation about the recent happenings in pro wrestling, whether it be WWE, AEW. Of course, I am a referee, which the whole Referee Tony S thing, I'm just going to be flat out with you. That is not a gimmick. I don't call myself Referee Tony S just for the hell of it. I've been a referee in the professional wrestling industry for the past 15 years up in New England. I've done live events down in Florida and New Orleans, all up and down the East Coast, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Rhode Island. I've been fortunate enough to be in the ring with some of the best and the brightest from the past, the present, the future. From Daniel Bryan to Tommaso Ciampa to Warbeard Hansen to Sasha Banks to Oney Lorcan to Mike Bennett to Shelton Benjamin. I've been in the ring with him. I'm really just living a blessed life. I know with the pandemic, there's a lot of referees out there that are playing it smart, they're playing it safe, they're not really working on live events due to the nature of the pandemic.
Right.
Some referees are doing, little studio shows for their, promotions, which, that's really a double-edged sword, but they're getting, ring experience, which I definitely get.
Right.
And for me, I haven't been in a ring for as of right now, I haven't been in a ring in almost a year. And when the time is right, or when the opportunity presents itself, I'll go back into the ring and do what I do best. But for right now, I have no problem sitting it out and waiting until that time comes. But other than that, it's been, I'm like I said before, I'm just living my best life and my blessed life.
I want to give a shout out to the good brother, B Rob. He's in the chat box. He says, titty meat.
Ha!
He said Tony's a true referee, staying out of sight.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because if you stay in sight, then you'll just get critiqued on Josh's podcast.
Yes. Nothing goes over my head.
No, it doesn't. Nothing goes over your head between the ropes, over the top, or through the middle. So, other than that, I mean, it's been good.
Right.
It's doing the TBD Wrestling Podcast. It's really Matt McCool and myself. We're just talking on the recent happenings on pro wrestling. He is the biggest Sasha Banks fan on this side of the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep him in check. Sometimes I can do that. Most of the time I can't, and we just let it fly. We'll also try to do rewinds where, Matt McCool, he's a wrestling fan. He started in the Ruthless Aggression era. I'm obviously older, so I've been around for a lot more. I've seen a lot more. So the point of the rewind is to try to introduce him to wrestling that he's never seen. I introduced him to some TNA, some ECW. So I'm going to do some more rewinds. I've got some future rewinds that I've already got, matches for. I'm just, waiting for the right time to put them through, and we'll put them on our website feed, which you can find wherever you get your podcast. We're like Mike Greenberg without the hashtag.
Right. You are the Dominique Foxworth of my Mike Greenberg.
There we go. There we go.
Tony, you just mentioned about Matt started watching wrestling in the Ruthless Aggression. I think we all have different paths in our wrestling journey. I am a young lion. I have the shirt, but I'm also a young lion as well because I'm younger than Matt. But I started watching wrestling in '98 and had freaking Sable's breasts all over the television screen at 4 years old.
High spot.
His parents didn't allow him to watch wrestling at that time. And I guess I was cut from a different cloth in that way. Maybe it describes my sense of humor sometimes.
I started in... Here's a story about how I got first introduced to it. This was about, I want to say May or June of '93.
Right.
I was going down the street to the convenience store, and myself and my grandmother, we would walk to the convenience store. I was about 7.
Yeah.
And I looked over at the magazines, and I'd never heard of wrestling, never seen it on television. And I looked to the right, and it was the magazine rack, and it was the latest at that time issue of the WWF magazine.
Right.
And it had Hulk Hogan on the cover, and he had just defeated, and I use that in quotes, Yokozuna to win the WWF championship for the 5th time. So it's a Hulk Hogan victory pose, and he's got the belt and everything. I got that magazine, and from that point I was hooked. I wanted to see more of it, know more about it. I wanted to see, if it was on, television. And at the time, we have an arena. It's now called the DCU Center, but at that point it was called the Centrum. And back in the day, the WWF would do periodic stops there. like I would say once a quarter, once every 4 or 5 months, they'd stop by. So I would say either later on that year in like 93, probably October, November, is when WWF came to town. And that was my first, live event. And, it's just the lights on in the ring and just a standard entranceway. And, at that point, I'm, a couple months into wrestling and I want to, check it out on Saturdays. And I wanted to watch wrestling no matter what. And then, you find other wrestling avenues on television that are there. But from that point on, hook, line, and sinker.
I was thinking about this earlier. There's one question that just pops in my head. A lot of times when I see like a lot of different podcasts, I see a lot of different stuff on social media, and this one question just rings in the back of my head. I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you hate wrestling? And I want to ask this question for a specific reason because we've both been watching this stuff for over 20 or almost 30 plus years, right? And
yeah.
Maybe, I'm sure we've all ran into situations where people tell us that we watch too much wrestling. I know for a fact that I watch to the naked eye, I watch too much wrestling, but this is life for me. This is work. This is something that I enjoy to do. This is my escape. I'm sure you can relate it to your end of the spectrum, even for the fact that you actually work in the industry as well. As Tony, the fan, do you hate wrestling? Because I'm sure maybe you'd have different perspectives on the industry just for the fact that you work in it. But as a fan, do you hate wrestling? Because every time I'm on social media, I'm like, why are we watching this in the first place if all you're going to do is bitch about it?
Because that's what they want to do. That's their outlet. As a fan, I don't hate wrestling at all. I think that now, when you look at fans, the majority of wrestling fans today want to believe or want to wish that wrestling was, or that wrestling went back to the era in which they either liked it the most or fell in love with it.
Right.
And it's like, it's that Attitude Era curse. It's, Attitude Era was, the biggest boom in the history of the WWF and in the wrestling period. And that was when the industry was at its highest. And a lot of fans, they wish it was back to the old Wild Wild West, and why can't this happen, and why can't there be this angle and this angle or this match or whatever. And there's a time and a place for everything. And I think most fans today that are complaining about it are not cognizant of that fact.
Right. Here's the thing with me. Like you were mentioning earlier that I'll point out the stuff with the referees and matches with my job and stuff, but I watch wrestling for wrestling. When I'm analyzing or critiquing wrestling, whatever phrase you want to use, I'm critiquing the wrestling in the ring. I'm critiquing what we're watching. I'm not. For me, this has always been my case. It's just my deal, and I'm different from other people. If it was up to me, I would have a wrestling show with no storylines, or I would have a wrestling podcast where I do have a wrestling podcast where I don't talk about booking. Because first off, if you're having a wrestling podcast or any podcast in general, why would you want to insult the intelligence of your listeners by acting like you know something that you don't?
Right. I've never said that I knew everything.
Go ahead.
No, I just said that I've never said that I know everything because I don't.
Right.
I attack this thing as a fan. Even when I'm, in the ring as an official, I'm still a fan. I'm just lucky enough to be in a position where I can do it. But there's a lot of people that want to play fantasy booker. And to those that want to do that, that's cool. But I don't have time for it. And at the end of the day, we can all play fantasy booker, but also at the end of the day, those that play fantasy booker are not the ones who are making the final decisions.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, especially on the WWE level, because, you want to make sure, the WWE is the be all end all. So everything that they do, because of whichever time period they want to critique it to, is going to get criticized no matter what they do.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to, play, fantasy booker or play fantasy head writer or whatever. And, personally, I don't want to get into that because I don't have the time for it. Those that make the decisions, they have their own rationale to make the decisions.
Right.
I just want to, enjoy it for what it is. And, like for you, you critique it, but you also use it for work purposes, just like I use it for videotape study purposes.
I'm also using it for tape study purposes too, because that's the reason why I created the website.
Right.
I know you had the nickname of Ross, but I've always wanted to be a play-by-play commentator because of Jim Ross. Yeah, he's the reason why I got hooked into this stuff. So, I take every wrestling show that I watch, whether I'm for that brand or I'm indifferent to what they're doing. I use that as an opportunity to learn something new with every wrestling show. And I just think so much right now we're so bogged down on what's good booking and what's not good booking. And it's like, at the end of the day, the product on the TV should tell you what's good and not what's going behind the scenes or what somebody tweeted out on Twitter or did a shoot interview on YouTube. That stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day because nobody should be speaking for you at the end of the day, which is something we'll talk about later on. But look, the last time we did a podcast together, we were talking about the anatomy of breaking down a wrestling match from refereeing and what I do with transcripts. And I really want to touch on that today since I have you on here and get into more detail of it because I think so much of context and substance in the stories in the ring get clouded over whatever the gimmick is or what the storyline is. You know what I mean, Tony? At the end of the day, in my opinion, I feel like the ultimate story is told inside that ring, not what's on the mic.
That's where the story is supposed to be. Everything leads to that 16 by 16 or 20 by 20 squared circle.
Right.
That's where the story culminates. The backstage stuff that can accentuate to lead into that big crescendo. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that whatever happens, the majority of the time or, the beginning or the end, you always want to make sure that your bread and butter and the biggest way to advance the storyline, as little or as large as it may be, has to be inside the ring. And I think a character and character development has a little to do with it. Easy for me to say. But if your character in the storyline is proper enough for the storyline, you don't have to try too hard. It's like for example, if you bring let's go back in the past, if you bring Trish and Lita in, by then everybody knows who and what Trish is. Everybody knows who and what Lita is.
Right.
So then you bring those two together. How are they going to mesh backstage? Okay, all right. They're not doing a whole lot backstage, but what they're doing, it's making sense. Okay, now we want to see the clash. We want to see what they're going to do in the ring. Oh, give them 15, 18 minutes to do their thing. Okay, now we know that either the storyline ends here or it's going to keep going or it's going to get put on pause for a while.
What's the ultimate goal for you as a referee when it comes to a match?
For me, that's a good question. For me, when it comes to being a referee, my ultimate goal is, first, you got to work with the talent, and at the same time, the talent has to work with you. If the talent refuses to work with a referee, that's a problem with the talent, not the referee.
Right.
I just want to make that clear. A lot of stuff have been put on referees for no reason, simply because either talents do not legitimately respect them, A, B, they don't respect the person in the role, or C, they were never taught to respect the job that it comes with it. So the first things first is you've got to work with the talent, and vice versa. The talent has to work with you. The second thing is, as a referee for me, where am I needed the most? And that's something that I collaborate with the talents on. Where am I needed the most? Am I needed most at a near fall, or am I needed most where the finish is? And because once you have those bullet points, the referee is going to know where they should be as far as, okay, I know things are going to happen A through E, but they really need me for part F of the match.
Right.
And then, okay, now we hit part F, and then we got to keep going from G through K. So for me, it's not just working with the talent, but also knowing where the talent wants me, because they trust me to be in everywhere else, but where the story picks up is where they want me to be. And the third thing, and most importantly, is that when it comes to falls and near falls, the motto is always, a good referee is when they don't notice you. That's true to a degree.
Right.
But I also think that if you have built up a track record, and if you've built up a rapport with the fans to the point where they do notice you for positive stuff, and I'll always take Mike Chioda as an example, because Mike Chioda is the GOAT. If I know Mike Chioda is refereeing a big championship match, or a rivalry defining match, if I know he's in the ring, I know, because of his track record, I have nothing to worry about, because I know he's going to be there.
Right.
And the biggest thing for a referee is consistency, and I know you've talked about that. You want to make sure that your counts and your cadence are the same every single time. And that, to me, is important, because you want the fans to be with you, especially if they can feel the match build to that crescendo that you want.
Here's my thing, like, Tony, when I make a transcript for a wrestling show, my ultimate goal is for it to be a point of reference for wrestling fans. Like, for me, my goal is not to reveal the fourth wall or pull the magic curtain off.
No.
for wrestling fans, because I never worked in the wrestling industry, so I'm not gonna try to insult people's intelligence, and I could know that I'm opening myself to mistakes or stuff that I missed in the match, and for what I do, it's not an easy thing to pause every 5 seconds and try to process sequences and moves and exchange. I really I make it descriptive for that reason, because I want it to be like a theater of the mind thing. So like when I separate a match in different paragraphs, it's not just because the match went long. I'm trying to show you the different parts of the match. And maybe the last part of that paragraph, maybe I got the wrong spot for that being the last part of that particular match. I could be totally wrong. And maybe I am. But I'm trying my best educational guess as far as like what to know, what to pivot from one paragraph to the next, what part of the match is going to a commercial break, and then coming out of commercial break. Now we have a lot of these shows that are stuck with picture-in-picture, and that can also get in the way of making it look good as far as the transcripts is concerned. And then pay-per-views is just like an educated guess on what the different parts of the match are for me, because I want to make sure that I do right by the performers that are in the ring, the agents that set up the match, and the referees that are officiating the match. Because I'm trying to type out your guys' story, even to the time where announcers don't even tell it, or not even doing a good job calling the match, or even calling the show in the first place, you know? I'm really trying to help everybody. I'm trying to help a wrestling fan get some proper knowledge without going to the dirt sheets. I'm trying to pay homage to the performance where I'm not insulting their challenges by saying this person botched this or that. I don't do that. I don't mention about booking decisions. I don't give out star ratings. The ultimate goal for me when it comes to breaking down a wrestling show is to be a point of reference for everybody, because I just feel like substance and, more importantly, context. I know they're kind of similar, but context, in my opinion, is lost in pro wrestling, not just by wrestling fans, but the people who work in the industry and former wrestlers who now do podcasts on wrestling websites.
And when it comes to like being in the ring for particular matches, you want, and everybody knows that, you know, pro wrestling is sports entertainment. Everybody knows that. But still, the key word is sports. So you want to make sure that what is being presented is, number one, legitimate, number two, competitive, and number three, believable.
Right.
And it's like, as far as a referee goes, and I'll keep it as simple as possible. As far as a referee goes, you want to look like you can control a legitimate fight. If this was legitimate, which in some terms that it is, so let's say, for example, it is. We don't want to, you know, insult the intelligence of the people, but when it comes to being legitimate, can this referee control it?
Right.
Legitimately. If they can't, we have a problem.
Do you notice a sequence or a certain set of moves today that just either annoys you or something that's overdone in every wrestling match these days?
The biggest thing for me is spots on the apron.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing for me, because, you know, I know it's been said ad nauseum that the apron's the hardest part of the ring, when in reality it is. But for me, it's just so dangerous, because that edge is so sharp, and one wrong move or one wrong slip, and that's it.
Right.
So for me, you know, I would say apron spots are just cringeworthy. I'll say that. They're cringeworthy for me, because as a referee, you want to make sure that you are there to ensure that the safety of the talent, and sometimes to protect the talent from themselves. And sometimes when you're doing those apron spots, as a referee, you're like, oh boy, like I just hope everything is okay. So those, for me, as far as right now, would be it. Other spots and sequences during the match, as far as those go, I can live with those. But for me, the talent and the talent safety for me is the most important. And, sometimes, when is the risk greater than the reward? Like
Right.
you want to make sure that the reward outweighs the risk, but you don't want to do a big time risk, a high risk maneuver, and the reward is non-existent. Like you never want to do that.
I think for me, like, I think this coincides also with some of the issues I have with like officiating today. Is some of the spots in the quarter don't make sense to me, or they just look phony.
You mean as far as legitimate tags?
Not just the tags, but also the spot where you Irish whip somebody to the quarter, somebody backdrops you over the top rope, and somebody like lands on the apron. If I'm throwing you over the top rope, you're actually fall to the floor. Like, I feel like it's overdone to a point where it looks fake and phony. Like, okay, here's somebody throwing somebody in the corner. Oh, an apron insecurity is coming sooner or later. I just feel like a lot of the corner spots, especially, are way too telegraphed. Not telegraphed, more choreographed, in my opinion. And I also don't think, this is just an observation of me because I see a lot of this. I don't think a match needs 20 reversals out of Irish whips. But I know fundamentals are important, stuff like that. I understand why they do it. But, like, I think a lot of that's overdone as well.
What you want to do is, during a match, you want to balance everything legitimately. Like, for example, if you want to take, Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley, like you said, what's the point of doing a reverse on an Irish whip? Like, what is the point of that multiple times during the match? That should really be done no more than 4 times during the match.
Right, and I've noticed more in these like 6-man and 8-man tag team matches where they'll do a tag for a hot spot. No, not hot spot, but like for a hot tag, and then they'll do. If I'm having to type out reversal out of the Irish whip 3 times in one paragraph, I think it's too much.
Oh yeah,
in my opinion. Yeah, and it happens a lot in New Japan. It happens a lot in AEW. I just think there's an over reliance on that particular spot. But since we could tie referees here, the biggest thing for me is just the placement of tag. I understand the concepts of cutting the ring in half and heels doing their job to make the fans upset and manipulate the referees' counts and stuff like that. But I think it's just gone overboard to the point where we're insulting the referees' intelligence and the fans too. Because, okay, some promotions prefer having 5 seconds to get out of the ring. Other promotions prefer 10 seconds to get out of the ring. And then you have New Japan where you can bring a steel chair in the ring and won't get disqualified for it. Like, I'm okay with understanding that different promotions want to do things to make them separate themselves from the pack. But I think, am I too old school to believe that rules should matter no matter what your wrestling promotion is? And then doing the whole simultaneous tag thing in these 6-man tag matches, 1, 2. Like, what are you getting out of that?
Here's what I say to that. For anybody who says, and I know there's a lot, okay, I operate a different way, and for those of you that don't think that referees don't need credibility themselves. I think you're shortchanging yourself. We need rules because here's why we need rules. We need rules to, number one, keep the baby faces in check. Number two, give the heels respective outs. And number three, keep the referees credible. We need those rules. And I know, like you said, a lot of promotions, they operate differently, and I get it. But at the end of the day, when does the phrase getting your ish in, when does that become too much? Like, there's a lot of talent that will mostly knowingly, disrespect the referee by getting their stuff in.
Yeah. All right. Are you talking about like the playing dumb part where somebody like a heel applies a domino stretch, yet he's holding his partner who's staying on the apron, even though the referee can see him right in front of her? I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I know.
You see it right in front of you, but you pretend like it's not happening. And yeah, you can put your finger out like a high school gym teacher, but admonish the wrestlers.
Well, here's what it's all about: positioning when it comes into a referee's point of view. And if you know that particular sequence is coming, first of all, the fans don't know what you know.
Right.
So the referee's job is kind of like the middle of an Oreo cookie. Why peanut butter and jelly goes together?
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody understands why, and it's a secret. Like nobody wants to really know exactly why that secret is made because you don't want that secret ruined because you know it already. But when you're a referee, it's all about positioning and knowing where to be. That's where the credibility part that I talked about earlier and believability, because you want to put yourself in a position to give the heels, the bad guys in the match, an opportunity to cheat. You want to be in your job to the point where with your mannerisms and with your body and with your inflections, you want to give that vibe that, okay, he or she is, this is where they're focused. This is where the referee is looking. The referee is not looking blatantly at the heels that are doing an illegal double team,
right?
Which should paramount a disqualification or at least a warning into a DQ, because that's bad ring positioning. And that's bad ring positioning on the referee, not exactly the heels, because wherever the referee is, wherever the sequence is, the referee's got to put themselves in that position to where, okay, where I'm going to be, I need to make sure that there's a place where I'm going to be, and there's also a place where I'm legitimately not going to see. It's like another commonly used sequence. If there's a headlock, Erwin R. Shyster used to do this all the time. Let's say he's got Razor Ramon in a headlock and a rear chin line. Now they're both down on the canvas, but Erwin's near the ropes and he's putting his feet over the bottom rope just for additional leverage. but the referee is with the competitor to the point where he can't see the feet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, by the time the feet are off the ropes, all you see is the rope shake. So now I got to be like, okay, wait a minute, why are the ropes shaking? So the referee's got to get in position too. But I think that, as far as being in that position, that comes with time. That comes with match experience, because that's when you know, okay, especially in high profile matches, no matter where you're at, that's when you know, okay, I've got to be here. This is part of that sequence. Okay, I've got to be here. They're going to do a spot where they're doing an illegal double team. I need to put myself in a position where if there's a submission, obviously I'm looking at the talent who's in the hold. So I need to protect myself by legitimately doing my job and not put myself in a position where I'm just looking at things just to look at them, if that makes sense.
Right. What do you think about like the spots in the corner where you have two heels from the apron choking somebody while the other heels in the ring choking somebody at the same time, like the triple choking session, or the spots in the corner where they have like 15 in and out tags just to rake somebody's back? What do you think about that?
The 15 simultaneous tags, I don't get it. I personally don't get it, because to me, it overcomplicates things. Because what is the point of doing simultaneous tags? What if at the end of this, let's say if we take the simultaneous tags out, let's say it was John Silver and Alex Reynolds. If they're doing that spot, if they're doing that sequence, if John Silver is at the start of the sequence, if John Silver is starting it, and by the end of the sequence, John Silver is the legal man at the end of the sequence, then there's a couple other ways you can go. One is Alex Reynolds can just blatantly come into the ring right in front of the referee and do a choking spot for 5 seconds. Because what's the point of the tag? You still have the legal man, but the illegal man is going to take advantage of the referee's rules, because he's going to come in and start his stuff. He could, also he could do that when, the referee is distracted by the babyface tag. I don't particularly get why you're going to do simultaneous in and out tags. I think tags should be available when needed and not abused when not.
Right. I want to get your thoughts on this, at least from like your perspectives. Like, I know you sometimes get the time to check out the transcripts and stuff. Like, is there something that you would like to know from my point of view? Is like somebody for the wrestling media and how to pinpoint stuff from referees or the coverage of it? Like, what do you think?
Well, first of all, if you haven't bookmarked ProWrestlingTranscriptions.com, then you really don't know how to use your bookmarks, pal.
I appreciate that.
My question is this, because I know that when you do your transcripts, number one, you do it as is, which I think is a blessing, because to your point, I think there's a lot of people out there that are really sick and tired of knowing behind. It's like what Eric Bischoff said in a WWE produced DVD about the AWA, when Eric Bischoff said, he was talking about Vern Gagne, and he said, only those of you that need to know behind the curtain need to know behind the curtain.
Right.
I think a lot of people, they want to just enjoy being a fan because, what's the point of knowing everything anyway if you're going to see it? Because then it's like, okay, well, hey, you know what's coming. But as far as the transcription goes, when it comes, what do you have any not really guidelines, but do you have any bullet points as far as protecting the talent? And what I mean by that is, protecting the talent with the sequences that they do, or calling out specific nuances that the talent does. Like, for example, like you could take, one of your favorites, Kaylee Ray. Like, how would you protect the talent when let's say, for example, everybody knows that botches happen, mistakes happen, they're going to call it out. But how in a wrestling transcript story where maybe certain people don't have the luxury of watching it on either cable or streaming, do you have any guidelines as far as protecting the talent within matches that you transcript?
For me, it's a yes and no, because I apply like the botches and stuff to promos. I'm not responsible for a promo segment not making sense. So when I'm
should be a disclaimer.
It is a disclaimer. Like if there's a promo segment going on, I'll typing it out verbatim, just like I mentioned earlier. It's a transcript. It's a point of reference. So I'm going to type it out one way or another. It's up to you to figure out subjectively whether it makes sense or not to you.
Right.
I think a lot of times that's another thing with today's wrestling fans, where they think they're the masters of logic. They're the greatest grammar. See, I wasn't even good. I can't pronounce this shit.
So basically, to add on what you're saying, they think that they're the human version of Grammarly.
Yes, exactly. They think they're CM Punk with Grammarly, and for me, it's like
I know the difference between "you're" and "you are."
Right. By the way, I'm not going to apologize for being dyslexic on air. I'm freaking. Give me a break, folks.
Yeah.
Here's the thing for me, Tony. Like, I'm going to protect the talents by actually acknowledging everything they do in the match. I'm not going to put so messed up this move or this nearly missed that. I'm just going to type out the move. I don't care whether it's botched or not. Like, for example, I didn't acknowledge the stuff with Nia Jax saying her hole this week. I didn't type that out because maybe it's just the fact that I'm like so tunnel vision that I block a lot of things out when I'm doing a transcript, Tony.
Right.
That I don't have the time, and two, I don't have the energy to even add that type of stuff to the transcript, because it's a disservice to me with my credibility of why I'm doing the transcript in the first place, and it's a discredit to the performers in the ring as well. However, like I said, there's always an exception to the rules. I will acknowledge when referees are being taken advantage of and heels are overstanding their boundaries when it comes to getting in and out of the ring. I will say that. I will say that a heel tag team is abusing a referee's 5 count or a 10 count. I'll acknowledge ref spots. And I try to pinpoint it in the precise matter of the sequence. And I think that's one of the nuances people kind of forget when it comes to the formatting of the transcripts. It's not just moves. It's really not. If I just wanted to make it just moves, I would just do it like bullet point dots with a lower font size, Tony, and just write out all the moves.
Right.
Yes, there are a collection of moves smattered in paragraphs, but there's a lot of nuance that goes into why I make the transcript the way it is, because I had to do it that way. If somebody is doing fucking 40 forearms with each other, like Hiromu and Sho the other night for their main event, which was an awesome match. I'm just going to type out as a forearm exchange. If they do that again, I'll point out that's the second forearm exchange. That's why I do it. It's part of the story. It's part of the match. So I had to make it descriptive so you guys could see it without actually seeing it. So
right.
It's a double-edged sword for me because I'm not going to acknowledge somebody's slip up on the microphone. I'm not going to acknowledge Matt Sydal slipping on the top rope when he makes his AEW debut.
Oh, boy.
Start press, you know? Like, it serves no purpose in my brain. It doesn't do anything for the business positively, in my opinion.
And the truth is, everybody has at one time or another they've made mistakes. You know, referees have made mistakes, wrestlers have made mistakes, ring announcers have made mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes. As certain wrestling fans, when they acknowledge or when they know that people have made mistakes, they like to call them out on it.
Right.
And to me, nobody, the talents themselves, including referees, when they make a mistake, they know it, and it sits with them for a long time. And when, they make a mistake, they kind of feel that they've let, everybody down, and it's their pride in a good way, because they want to be able to contribute to the best of their ability.
Right.
But, hey, this person made a mistake and, they did this. I know in my social media, I've never acknowledged anybody making a mistake or botching this or doing that, because at the end of the day, we're all human, and we all, which is why we are successful and get into the positions that we are. Our mistakes, how we deal with our mistakes, end up defining us.
Right.
And like for me, I've made mistakes. It's no secret. But, at the same time, it's not just how you deal with the mistakes, but who supports you in that.
Right.
And you've got to have a good support system. And, I know that, referees, like I said, have made mistakes, and I feel for them. But everybody's, most people are like, well, they're just referees, and all they have to do is count to 3 and all that. And, first of all, referees have been, and I know that you'll probably agree with me on this, when it comes to a match, the referee is the backbone, because that's where the structure comes in. And like, that's what we were talking about as far as rules a couple of moments ago. And the referee needs the overall structure legitimacy of the match. And that's why you have to have it. And for me, it's just like in life. There's, just like what we were talking about earlier, there's ups and downs in it. And there's going to be stuff that, things are going to happen that you didn't plan. But it's about A, how you deal with it, and B, who supports you in growing from it.
Right. I think when I look back at the transcript, I think for me, I know that I pattern a lot of what I type out off of Kevin Kelly's commentary, because I think he's the best when it comes to protecting talent and calling action in the ring today, in my opinion. and just giving you straight to what's going on in the ring. And it's really easy to process what he does. Like, a lot of times I'm not able to cover a lot of these New Japan shows live unless it's a big special and it's like a weekend or something like that. Like, I'll wake up, and they have a lot of shows during the week, so I'll wake up sometimes at 6 o'clock in the morning, working out 4 hours of sleep from working night shifts at my uncle's tattoo shop during the week. And, he really helps me out with like understand and calling out sequences. And he makes my job easier. He really does. Like, I was doing the Kota Ibushi and Sonata match today. And, sometimes I'll look on the New Japan website to see how long matches were. I really don't look out for like spoilers and stuff, but I do look out for like match like what do you call it? The match time limit or rundown or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I'll look out for that because I wanted to have in the back of my head of like what part of the match where I can separate this from that. And that's like a mental tick in my head that I need to have. Like, I need to know how long this match is going to be. Like, how can I mentally prepare for this next part of the match? And Kota Ibushi and Sonata went 27 minutes today, and it didn't feel like it because Kevin Kelly made it easy for me. I didn't have to pause a lot. And, you have two guys that are very fast and very athletic. That could be very hard for somebody who doesn't have that ability to type something out that fast, And I really thank Kevin Kelly for helping me out there because without him, I would be lost when it comes to strong style and counter chain wrestling and stuff like Zack Sabre Jr. where we're doing freaking hammer locks into top wrist locks into omoplatas. And for me, I don't want it to be too repetitive in the transcript, but I want to make sure it is accurate to what happened inside that match. That's the biggest thing.
And I think that's a great plan. And the good thing about Kevin Kelly is, like you said, wrestling should be easy to digest. Once it becomes harder to digest and or understand, to me, that's when it's not entertaining.
Right.
It's like, okay, like Josh, what is your favorite food?
My favorite food?
Yeah.
Poontang pie. No, I'm kidding. We'll go with pizza.
Okay. All right. So for a pizza, the good thing about a pizza is number one, if it's made right, and number two, if it's easy to digest.
Right.
Well, what if a pizza was not made right? What if when you ordered a pizza, whether it be going down to your local shop or getting it delivered to you, what if it wasn't made right?
Yeah, that'd be a bad night at the office.
Or what if it was made right, but it doesn't go down as easy as you normally had? Especially if you ordered the same pizza every time. That's your go-to. And it didn't go down as well as the last one. That's how you kind of look at wrestling. I look at wrestling as, okay, like if like in eras too. You look at the golden era at the WWF, and I'll just use that little time period. If you look at the first 6 months of Raw, and if you just look at the presentation of Raw, we got a little, and especially at the Manhattan Center, here's a bunch of neon lights. Here's a little bit of walkway, about a 10-foot walkway. Here's the ring in the middle of the Manhattan Center. Easy. And then we got, but that's easy to take in. And then all of a sudden you go 15 years later, here's light show, pyro, big screen, and 3 hours. And to me, and that goes with commentary too. The guys who are describing the match to you, because they're the narrators, they're the ones that are describing what's going on in the ring, and not just in the ring these days, but throughout that particular show, or what is making sense within that sequence of the match. You want to make sure that whoever you put behind the mics, behind the booth, are, number one, articulate, number two, intelligent, and number three, they have a way about themselves where they can convey the product to a very novice viewer, or to convey the product to somebody who's really wants their hard-hitting athletic sports. And I think Kevin Kelly, to a lesser degree, I think Kevin Kelly does his job extremely well. I would have loved to have him in my book. And when you really think about it, he was a commentator when he started originally. Then he gets hired in the WWF as a backstage interviewer, primarily as a backstage interviewer. And then he goes to Ring of Honor for a couple of years and completely changes the commentary scene in that company.
Right.
And now he's in New Japan, and I truly believe this. I believe that Kevin Kelly is one of the most underrated commentators in sports today. Yeah. It's like Todd Grisham. Todd Grisham did commentary for WWE one time. He did ring announcing on Raw one time. But primarily, he's a backstage interviewer. But now look at him. He's transitioned. He's on ESPN doing Glory 1 kickboxing. Who would have ever expected Todd Grisham to do mixed martial arts or kickboxing? But he's doing it. And I think it's the way that Kevin, and I like how Todd does it too, but it's the way that Kevin and Todd, the way that they don't overpower you with their knowledge of the business. Right. They don't overpower you with, they don't overpower you with, hey, I'm here, you're not, let me just talk for 3 hours. No, it's almost like you want somebody, if you're watching it for the first time and you want somebody to narrate you through this car crash that you're going to see, you need this guy or you need this guy.
Right.
You want somebody to navigate that plane.
I really try to do that with the podcast. I don't know if I do it for the people that it's hard for me to say that because, you hear your voice and then how it translates to other people could be a totally different experience.
Oh God, yeah. It's especially with the TBD Wrestling Podcast because, like I said, it really is Matt McCole's show. Mm-hmm. It is his show, but I have to listen to the show back because we want to obviously put out the best product that at least we can. So hearing your voice back, and this, can be one of the most cringeworthy things ever.
Every time.
Or worse. Like if I'm like for example, if I'm watching a match that I'm refereeing in, I have no problem with that. But I can't watch myself do a promo, or I can't watch myself doing anything else but that.
I can't stand the sound of my voice.
I can't I can't either, especially if I'm editing it. Like I said, if I'm refereeing, I could watch that all day.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm just talking like I am now, and you expect me to listen to it, or if I'm standing still, or if I'm public speaking and you want me to do that, are you kidding me? I can't watch that. Ugh.
Oh man. Really quick before we get to our final part of the show, this for this special episode, looking at the landscape of wrestling media these days, and you guys that follow me on Twitter know that I'm not afraid to make my opinions known when it comes to who's on the marquee and who should get the proper attention. The reason I feel like so openly free to do that is because I put time in this field to speak my mind, and I've been through a lot in the wrestling media to where I am right now. I really feel like that my side of the field is doing a big disservice to future wrestling fans in the way we cover the industry and how we view it. And, it's I just think on the surface is very hypocritical for people like Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez to go on soapboxes about WWE having the age problem, yet the age of hardcore wrestling fans are 45 years old and 61. You know what I mean? And it's not about me trying to be the edgy guy or outside the bubble guy in the wrestling media, because I'm not in anybody's bubble. I'm not. I live and do things on my own terms, and for better or for worse, I learn from my mistakes. I try to better my craft each week. I do it, and for me, I see politics in WrestleZone. I see politics in podcasting and video shows. Nothing that you see on the wrestling media that like you guys be surprised by. I've seen worse. And I see a lot of shows that are good and bad go. And I see a lot of talented people go away from podcasting because just the overall culture of it is just, it brings you down and takes away your passion of the wrestling industry as a whole. And it's affected me in a lot of ways too. In March, I'll be celebrating my 8th year as a professional broadcaster. And for me, I take it as offense when guys like Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer, who are actual hacks, get portrayed and put on a ceiling that they don't belong on, where other people, and I'm not putting myself just to put myself over, but there's talented people who do great stuff and do great content that they're not solely focused on booking all the time and focus on subjective shit that has nothing to do with the overall goal of wrestling. And I feel like those two are the main reason why a lot of people take pro wrestling for granted, because a lot of people can't think for themselves. A lot of people go to those guys as their outlet to vent and bitch. That's their only sources. So when you ask somebody, how do you feel about Angle, you're not getting a direct answer for them because they're just spewing out something that they heard on their website or a podcast like them. And for me, doing this for 8 years, it's getting worse than what it was when I first started. And I'm really ashamed of my field in a lot of ways because I went to school for this. I got the plaques right behind me to prove it for you guys. I went to school for this stuff. I'm very passionate about broadcasting and doing it the right way. You know why wrestling shows are not on sports talk radio outside of Busted Open? Is because the credibility is not there.
Mm-hmm.
The credibility is not there. And you know why? Because you got hacks like Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer who like to act like they're the tough bravado guys. But honestly, both of them are highly insecure like high school teenage girls. Listen to how they carry themselves in their podcasts and their videos that they do. Brian Alvarez go on a soapbox like a 9-year-old girl over the Alexa Bliss stuff, which is absolutely embarrassing. Him trying to degrade the level of Roman Reigns' leukemia last year was insulting. Like, for me, I'm not about canceling people, but for me, if somebody's experiencing this, and I'm sure you see this as somebody who's worked in the industry, I just think we're doing a disservice to wrestling fans. Obviously, what my field does is spin the face of people who actually do this for a living. My field does not do a proper job of acknowledging the referees and what they bring to the table. It's very sad in a lot of ways. And the reason I'm bringing this up to you, Toy, because I do this a lot in this series, that like I'm a wrestling content creator, I'm a professional broadcaster, and I want to help grow the coverage of wrestling into the next era. Because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this. I don't know how long it'll take me to get an opportunity to work in the wrestling business where I'm not doing this anymore, or I'm not doing the transcripts anymore. And I want to leave this field better than I found it. And I'm really concerned about the future of wrestling fans, because if all this is for us to be trigger happy and just wait to find reasons to be pissed off the moment a wrestling show goes off air, what's the point of this? Why are we doing all of this?
Well, here's what I'll say to that. Number one, politics run wild in every business, especially in the wrestling business. I have tried, and I think I've done a pretty damn good job of trying to keep my nose out of politics in the business.
Right.
I also know what it's like to be maligned in my industry. So and that's a fact. Here's what I'll say about the wrestling media. I'm excluding you out of it because you're JL Ross. The fact is, when it comes to wrestling media today, it's self-preservation. And they're pushing their own belief of self, not of the industry, only their belief of self. When it comes to certain, and I'll be honest, the fans today, and certain fans, not all of them, but certain fans, when they themselves have predicted it, it's like that it's the fantasy booking matchup that we talked about. When they don't get what they want, it's the company's fault, or it's the booker's fault, or why isn't my guy champion? Why isn't the star that I want, that I've been ride or die since day one? Remember when I was day one? I was ride or die before there even was ride or die. The fact, when it comes to fans today, they want what they want. Can't help that. And some of the media, they want quick solutions to long-term problems. And to them, I say, and the good part about the wrestling business is all the BS gets weeded out eventually. You don't know how, you don't know when, but eventually it does get weeded out. And it's like what you said, certain podcasters will go on and, they want to be fantasy Mac. They want to be fantasy Vince McMahon. They want to be fantasy, Tony Khan, or fantasy Triple H, or, fantasy Scott D'Amore. And they want to book out the next 6 weeks of TV while they're sitting in their parents' house in a little floaty inflatable pool. It's like that South Park episode when they're celebrating Cartman's birthday, and Cartman is sitting around the table outside with all of his stuffed animals, and he's having a tea party. Like, that's what it is. It's like there's me and all my invisible friends, and we're the booking committee.
Right.
And to me, it's like, come on, guys, what are we doing? And I think wrestling now, which it's a double-edged sword. It's been more complicated. And if you've noticed, wrestling has gotten more confusing instead of more simplified. And I'm like, damn, like you shouldn't need to, you shouldn't need to take this long. You shouldn't need to take 15 minutes to put a 9-piece puzzle together.
Right.
At the end of the day, when it comes to wrestling media, they is what they is. All you have gotten success as far as what you've been doing because your formula works. That's your track record. And your formula as far as doing what you have done in your chosen field, that works. So you don't need to stray from that. And you don't need to worry about what others are doing. As far as the Alvarez, Meltzer, whatever, I never, they have their quote unquote reports. I never paid attention before I was in the business. And I pay even less attention now. And it's not a slight on them. I just choose not to bog my time down with it.
Right.
Because I got way more important things to do. Like, video study for, my next match or enjoy a nice cup of hot chocolate, something.
Right.
Anything. Like, a lot of people, and like if you notice, like a lot of people, they're like, well, hey, I know all the inside of what's going on in the WWE. Really? So you're gonna Mission Impossible like Tom Cruise in the Titan Towers and go into their booking meeting? You know what's gonna happen. They're gonna find you, especially if you paraglide into Vince McMahon's office. Vince McMahon is gonna throw you off of the 7th floor in Titan Towers.
Right.
Like, like people want to be like, hey, it's like Kurt Angle. It was like Kurt Angle when it was like in 2002 when Kurt Angle was in a storyline with Triple H, and Kurt Angle was making assumptions of what Triple H's baby was going to look like, and he brought a stroller and a carriage to the ring, and he brought out the baby, and it was a monkey. It was a little stuffed monkey.
Yep.
With a diaper on it and a little it was a Triple H bear, and Kurt's like, it's Triple H Jr. Like a lot of people today are like, hey, check it out. I'm just as smart as Paul. I'm gonna be running WWE one day. You watch.
Right.
I'm gonna get Paul out of a job. Just watch. It's like all of these dreams that they have about fantasy bookings of, like, I get it. There's a lot of smart people in the industry, legitimately. But for me, hey, I'm a referee first and foremost, right. and I'm a co-host second. But
no, you're a host.
I am a co-host on the show. It's a cool show. I'm just late to pay rent.
Right.
But at the same time, I remain a fan. And I think a lot of people not just in the business, but outside of the business too, I think they've forgotten what it's like to be a fan.
Yes.
They've forgotten what it's like. Like, hey man, I remember what it was like Saturday afternoons at 4:00. I'm watching WWF Superstars with a whole shitload of cereal, and I know Double Dare is coming on at 5:30.
Double Dare, oh my god!
Hey man, my Saturdays was mapped out. I had Superstars from 4 to 5.
Right.
I had Nick Arcade from 5 to 5:30, and I had Double Dare from 5:30 to 6.
Well,
my Saturdays were mapped out.
Well, my Saturdays were much different back then. It would start off with Martin in the morning, reruns of Rugrats or Arthur in the afternoon, and then if I'm lucky, watch something like Everybody Loves Raymond or The Fresh Prince around that time.
I thought you were going to say The King of Queens.
Oh, I've watched it. I didn't watch it a lot when I was younger, though. Back again, where were you? Back again, tight.
Yeah. It's okay, Raymond.
It's okay, Raymond.
It's okay, Raymond. Everything's okay.
It's crazy. I'm kind of like a modern day Ray Romano. I just don't have a wife. I'm not traveling to do all these like media hits like he did, but I'm at home typing all the time.
Or the money.
I'll get there sooner or later.
Yeah, I will too eventually, so I'm not worried about that.
I want to give shout out to my old man who's checking out the show right now. He said King of Queens rule.
There you go.
So I want to wrap it up with this. We're going to stray a little away from wrestling and talk a little bit about what we were talking about before we went on air, Tony. And I brought this up to you, and you said it was all right. And I've been on a little bit of a spiritual journey, just as a person over this past month or so. Not past month, but this past year or so.
What are you, Sean O'Hare?
Absolutely not. No.
Like, you're not telling me anything that I don't already know, right?
No, you already know.
Yeah,
you already know. Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Yeah, and it's nothing like Ryback the Secret, but
no.
But
I got nothing. Hey, listen, Ryback is controversial, but I've worked with Ryback one time, and he had a match, and it was part of a ref bump,
right?
And Ryback was going to meat hook clothesline me, but I think at the time his shoulder was either dislocated or separated, so he could barely use it. I was like, dude, just shoulder block me. Like, but yeah, it's we're going to stray into the most known unknown.
Yes, the most unknown of unknown is the world of relationships. And this is a little different. Obviously, you get two perspectives from two males who are able to contemplate their own way of thinking, which is also a rarity these days, unfortunately, for men. But I was saying I've been on like a spiritual journey over the last year and a half, just not just because of what happened to me, but I really wanted to take a step back and study a different aspect of life. While I've been in broadcast, I've really been into like understanding psychology, which I think also helps me a lot with the transcripts,
right? As
well. Tony, I think it's able to help me like process why this is happening here, why that's happening here, stuff like that. But also not just psychology, understanding energy, tapping into positive thinking and mental health has really been really important to me. And I think the next level of that was for me to understand relationships and just further general communication too. For those who don't know, Tony was one of my big sources of help once my thing in Oviedo went down about a year and a half ago. And I've on countless times I thanked Tony for being the good brother when I needed him the most at that time. And he's really given out a lot of good advice, and I really do appreciate you, brother, for what you did for me during that time period. And, I'm where I was when I first brought this up to Tony, it's been totally different for how me and him interact now. I mentioned a little bit about it on the podcast this week of what I learned from that experience. But I think all in all, the thing I want to hit on here is telling the people why you should not tolerate flakiness and tolerating any form of disrespect. You know what I mean? I think for me, the ultimate slap in the face is disrespecting yourself out of things that you know that's not good for you. And I don't care what the situation is. I don't care how long you know somebody. When you know inside of you that person is not committed to you and what you want, I think you're just doing a disservice to yourself out of lust and stuff that does not matter at the end of the day. And for me, I don't see the point of disrespecting myself just for the sake of having a relationship. I understand things about compromise and having meeting in the middle. We can all agree and disagree with different aspects of our personalities. That's the part of being partners, right? But at the same time, just in general, whether it's friends, dating, marriage, relationships, if you're tolerating disrespect, you're just heading into a bad rabbit hole that you're not going to get yourself out of. That's my opinion. What do you think about that?
See, now why do I got to follow up that? Here's what I'll say. First, and I've been single for a while, but one of my qualities that I like to think that it's good is that I observe a lot, and I observe people's tendencies, and I don't have to say a damn thing. Like, I've learned that when it comes to me, karma is my tag team partner.
Right.
And you got to look at yourself as number one. Because, first of all, I've said this a million times, we can be our own biggest supporters and we can also be our own biggest critics.
Yeah.
But we also want somebody to recognize us for who we are, not necessarily for who they want us to be. With that said, not just our energy, but our time is valuable.
Yes.
And we want somebody, we deserve to have somebody who values our time just as if it was their own. Like, I have, there are people in my life that I had to cut off and let go simply because I gave them a lot more of myself than what they deserved.
Right. Same here.
And I was like, see you right there. There's the door, and yeah, goodbye right there. I was like, and I didn't, and honestly, I didn't even say that.
Yeah.
You
I
got to put yourself in a position where, and it's not being selfish. It's just being smart and cognizant of yourself.
Yeah.
If you're putting time in yourself, trying to make yourself grow, you want to put that same time into effort. It's a reciprocal thing. You want to make sure that what you're putting in yourself, somebody's putting in you. Equal is equal. And at the same time, you got to know for yourself. And that's why I think mental health is so important, because you got to have that support system. Like, for me, thank God for wrestling and music, because, most of the time I'm watching wrestling, but, if I want to, listen to, 9 Inch Nails, or if I want to listen to Filter or Coheed and Cambria or Chevelle, or if I want to listen to B.I.G. and Tupac or Jay-Z and Linkin Park, like, you gotta have things to fit your mood to kind of balance that out.
Right.
And you got to take care of yourself, because you're number one. You gotta king yourself up. You gotta level up. And you are. It's like, excuse my language, here, kids, but you gotta believe in yourself. You gotta believe that you're the shit. And if people in your circle treat you like you are, just like you treat them that they are, we're good.
Right.
But at the same time, if you believe that you are and you're hanging out with somebody or people that are showing you otherwise and showing you that you're not, then we'll just cut that off right now. See you later. Goodbye. Like, your time to yourself is important. How you take care of yourself. I could be in my place right now, either in front of a video game, or I could be just enjoying my time or doing work. But I know that what I'm doing right now, when I give my time to people, is because they deserve me and my time.
Right.
I'm not going to give my time to people who don't deserve it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are under the belief that because they are who they are, they deserve everybody's time. Sorry to pump the brakes on you. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. No, you don't.
No.
You know, like, and in relationships, like you said, whether it's boyfriend and girlfriend or marriage or whatever, it's got to be 50-50, man. You got to treat them just like you treat yourself. If you got to give yourself and them the time, and they got to give themselves at times and you the time. Because you want to not just grow apart from each other, you want to grow with each other too.
Right.
And it's like you hang out with somebody, you've known somebody for years, and it feels like it's a give and take relationship, but it's only one side.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's like, why am I giving you my time and you're taking from me?
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything reciprocal. It's like, and you can attest to this, it's like if somebody messages you and just by the way and how they put their words, you know what it's all about.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you look at it and go, here we go again. We're back to square one. And it's almost like, hey, I can predict how this conversation is going to go in 15 minutes. And in less than 10, you're proven right.
Yeah.
Like,
but let me add on to that really quick, because you made a lot of good points, and I think like
it's the only ones that I've made during the whole show. So I've got to have something here. But no, it's true. Like you gotta believe. You gotta put the time in of yourself. Like, I'll use you as an example. Look at the strides that you've made over the past several months to where you're at now, Mr. Office Studio. And hey, like it's like hey guys, like, you know, like it's like, hey, check me out. I'm not just putting the time in myself. I'm making sure that the situations around me, that things around me are reflective of me and my strength and my power. And it's like, hey, man, it's like, hey, I'm sitting on a gaming chair too, but I don't have the balls to post it on Instagram, you know. But then again, you know why you did it? It's because you're showing yourself that, hey, these are the strides that I made, and I'm not done yet.
There was one thing you brought up there about leveling up that I really wanted to touch on, because it's very true. I think having an alpha mentality can be misconstrued in a lot of ways by a lot of people, because because you have an alpha mentality doesn't mean that you're arrogant or cocky or selfish. I think having an abundance / alpha mentality is very important because you're a high value person.
You're a commodity. Exactly.
Yeah, you're a commodity. You're a high value man. We're both high value men in what we do. And we put our careers on a pedestal because that's where it belongs. And that's where our focus is. And that's what our purpose is. And that's what we do. That doesn't take away from the person you are or how genuine or nice or anything like that. That's already established. That's not something that has to be proven to somebody. And I think for me, over the last year and a half, I realized that I was not going to tolerate disrespect, and I'm not going to be some beta simp bitch.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to do that game. I'm not going to do this. Oh, let's text each other about weather and have a random text message that goes nowhere. You know? Oh, you gotta ask me if I'm cold in December in Chicago. No shit. You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm cold. But, like, text messages that don't go anywhere, I'm not going to invest time in. And, like, the last girl I was with, I told her, like, for me, if it was up to me, I would not text anybody because I'd rather have a conversation with somebody on the phone or like this face-to-face than texting somebody.
Right.
I'm not going to play this mind game of misinterpreting what somebody texts or anything like that because I just don't have the time or energy to try to play mind games and trying to overthink something over a text message. Right. If it's something important and you really want to talk to me, let's talk like adults. Like
exactly.
Like for me, I value my time. You said the greatest thing about valuing your time. I have a purpose. I cover 14 wrestling shows a week. I do a podcast here. I work at a tattoo shop. I'm trying to make money, save money to pay off for my own place. I'm trying to be happy, trying to find myself still at a young age of 26. Like, I don't have everything planned out. I don't have everything figured out. That's not the case. I don't know everything. But for me, I have myself. And I don't think a lot of people do. And it's something that I need to do because I had to grow up and be an adult and take things on my own terms because something out of my control happened. And I could have went other ways. I could have felt sorry for myself. I could have joined gangs. I could have made stupid decisions. But I didn't. I went after something I wanted to do and something that I thought I would be good at. And I was a very shy kid in high school where I was in my head and where I was a simp and I was insecure about how I felt about myself or how did I sounded or how people thought about me. And I hid behind my guitar because that was the only escape that I had during that time period in my life and wrestling too. And for me, this has been a 10-year process to where I am right now. This hasn't been easy. I've gone through depression. I found it interesting that, rejection hit me harder than being cheated on. I've been cheated on 3 times.
Yeah.
And none of those situations have affected me more than this last rejection. And the reason why that is because, like you said, the time that I invested into it, of what I gave of myself to that person, right. Of the energy and taking a risk of going to meet this girl's parents and going out of state to do that, to show action, right? We always hear these things from women about, all these guys are about words but no action. But when things get real and when you show action, more times than not, girls these days are going to flake out on you. And that's the truth. So you want me to disregard you and your self-respect by me compromising my own self-respect and my pride? I got to put you over my own integrity. I got to put you over my own moral and ethics. I got to put you over myself because you don't know what you want or how you look at yourself in the mirror or you don't have any self-respect, you don't have the ability to think for yourself, you don't have the ability to acknowledge that somebody 8 years older than you that's still living with his fucking parents is not good for you, I'm supposed to compromise myself for that? Where you're 6 years older than me? Think about that. It has nothing to do about being bitter. It just is real fucking facts. I care about my well-being and helping people. What hurt about that rejection was because I knew the bond that I had with this chick was real.
Right.
And that rejection, I thought that was a bad validation of me and what I was doing.
Right.
And it was the wrong way to look at it.
But at the time,
yeah, it sucked.
Right. But that's when
worthless at that point.
Right. But that's when you take back all that love that you were gonna give that person. You take that back and you give it to yourself.
Right. Right. And I was telling you this when I brought the story up to you. Like, it's one thing to say you feel like you met the one or whatever it is, but it has to come through within. It has to feel like inside of you. And when I was there, I felt this was real thing.
Right.
And I mentioned on the pod this week that with that rejection, it was the greatest blessing. Excuse me. It's the greatest blessing in my life because it was the validation I needed for myself. That trip told me that I was good enough for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can take that away from me now. I did not share the stuff about the house or the office as something to braggadocio or anything like that. I shared that because I'm very proud of the steps I took it to make this a reality of what I put in. And the fact that, again, not allowing a fucking insecure, not knowing, indecisive girl knowing what the hell she wants to not affect my life and ruin my life and put me in a path of making dumb decisions. Because I had myself at that point. I already had the work ethic of what I do with the articles and the shows. It was that I needed that experience to tell me that I don't need to care anymore. That I cared too much at that point. Because you can give your heart to somebody. You can be there for somebody and be that friend. And even then, they'll still tell you it's not good enough. Or they'll put you in a box. They'll put you in this zone. They'll do this and that. And you know what? It goes back to what I've always told myself. If you can't trust me enough to be your man, your husband, your boyfriend, whatever, how in the blue hell am I supposed to trust you as a friend?
True.
Honestly. Because isn't it an extension of friendship? Isn't that what all this relationship stuff is?
You got it.
At the end of the day, like for me, I lose no sleep over the fact that I got a cold shoulder. If anything, it was the wake-up call from God that I needed to stop doubting myself, to stop feeling sorry for myself of insecurities and self-doubt that I never needed in the first place. Because I knew I was making progress, that I knew that what I was doing in my life was for the right reasons. And like I said on the show today, it's her loss. I took the biggest risk of my life going down there and doing something that if you asked me 5 or 10 years ago if I would spend money to go meet a girl's parents and try to take the next step with her, hell no. I would not have the confidence to do that. I don't regret that decision because it's made me a better person. It's made me a better man, and I had to realize that for myself. And I'm proud of that. I wear that as a badge of honor. I needed an insecure 32-year-old to validate my own self-confidence. And it's been a journey, and it's something I don't regret. I'm proud of it. That's why I'm not afraid to talk about this, because what do I need to be ashamed of? I was literally that friend for her while she was at the lowest part of her life. Things grew more as time went on because of that bond. And even then, when things got real, backpedal Jones.
Right.
at the end of the day, what else am I supposed to do? You know?
There's only one thing that you could do, and that's move on with you. Because at the end of the day, you didn't give up on you.
Right.
You didn't let yourself down. All you did was bet on yourself for that particular choice, and that choice didn't pan out. No sleep over it. But you proved to yourself that, hey, I'm still doing things. I'm still doing things my way. I'm just keeping the energy that she took from me.
Right.
That's all you're doing. You're keeping and you're replenishing the energy that they took from you or that she took from you. It's like, I was a friend with somebody, and we were friends for 15 years before we known each other and I'd known her through certain relationships that we had. And then we finally decided to go out, and then, it was all good, and, we were getting along, and everybody knew who I was, and we're just, living it. And then all of a sudden, within a span of 2 weeks, it went from great to cold shoulder to, I'm leaving and going to another state, and
right.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna leave and move to another state, and you break up with somebody through text message, giving the whole, it wasn't anything that you did and this and that. It was all me, and we need to do this. And I'm like, you know what? Whatevs.
Yeah, you're not going to reciprocate energy that you gave through text message. I'm sorry. If you don't have the ability to call somebody or FaceTime them, even if it's like a long distance thing, then your partner's showing you how they really feel.
Exactly. And at that point, I was like, and like everything was cool. And I'm like, oh, so you go from this, and I'm like, all right, so you within a span, I'm like, all right, so you cut me off, and you end a relationship through text, you remove me from your Facebook friends list, but your son and I are still Facebook friends, and we still talk on occasion. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I just took, and I said it. I was like, I said here, I was like, I said, I just took everything that you stole from me back.
Yes.
I took it, and, it hurt. Yeah. And it sucked. Yeah. But I took that energy and I put it into myself and started building, me, not over again, but just giving myself an opportunity to get stronger. And that's where you always build victory and defeat. You always are able to do that. And when it comes to relationships, like I said, you got to make sure that people are on that same level. If you're above them on the level scale, or they need you more than you need them, that's a problem.
That is a problem. And it's also the same thing just in general in life. Don't tell somebody that you love them and care for them when you're not healed.
Right.
If you're not healed, don't play games with people, because it's even more selfish for you to string somebody along because you're not healed and you can't look within yourself. How can you give all yourself to somebody if you're not even giving all to your own?
Yeah, and I'll say this: if you think, and I'll say this: this is how much I know in myself because I've proven it. if you were hurt before you met me, and then all of a sudden I did my thing and I was there for you and all that stuff, and then you decide to hurt me to the point where you pushed me away, and then you regret that. If you were hurt before, imagine how much hurt you're gonna be in now that I'm not there, that you don't have that somebody to rely on with you that you wanted so much, because you took advantage of, you took it for granted, and it bit you in the ass.
Amen.
I remember one time, real quick, I was dating somebody. This was like a decade ago, but I was dating somebody, and I had just gotten off of a year and a half, quote unquote, relationship.
Right.
And I said to this person, I said to this person, I am too good to be misused. I am too loyal to be thrown aside.
Right.
All I said was, if you hurt me, I said there's a track record when it comes to me that those that hurt me are never the same again. That's
right.
It's not arrogance. It's not being cocky.
It's true.
It's just the fact of what happens when you screw up a good thing and you don't realize it until you don't have it anymore.
Right. And then that same person is going to tell you months later that you're living the life that she wants.
Yeah. Like the first person that I said that to, when I ended it, I ended it, and then she tried to break into my house for like 3 weeks.
Yep.
But about 2 years ago, and this was years after I'd left, because there was a period of time when she blamed me for everything that she did after I had ended it because I wasn't there. And she apologized legitimately to me.
Apologize.
Yeah. I want you to apologize, CM Punk, Vince McMahon. Like, she apologized to me for putting me through hell, and I said it to myself. I said, I appreciate the apology, but what good is it now when you didn't give it then? Right. And you tried to break into my house for 21 straight days. I was like, I appreciate the sentiment and thank you. And this was like 8 or 9 years after the fact. But at the end of the day, you have an opportunity to give yourself the attention that it deserves.
Right.
And it's taking care of yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself. But don't use the guise of taking care of yourself as a built-in excuse to hurt others.
Right. And also at the same time, don't feel like you have to prove yourself to anybody.
And that's no matter what you do.
Yeah, it's not just relationships. It's about life. It's about your career. It's about how you interact with your own family members too. Again, you should never put anybody else besides God on a pedestal.
Right.
Like you have to control your own life. You don't have control over other people. You don't have say in how they interact with you. Only thing you can protect and control is what's in your heart and the energy that you surround yourself with. And we all make mistakes. I don't sit here today and feel like I made a mistake falling in love with this girl. She made me a better person.
Right.
She really did. And the thing is, she wasn't able to acknowledge that to herself.
Right.
That's the difference. And I was one that took the bullet at the end, but I'm still standing. I didn't lose myself. I didn't lose myself of rejection. And I don't believe it's something because, it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be. But also, maybe it wasn't the right time at that point.
Right.
And for me, and like I'm very grateful that you have agreed to let me be open and honest about this stuff with you because a lot of men go throughout life and acting, we have to be tough and this like that. You can be honest and still have masculine energy. Just because of what I shared tonight on this show or what I said on the podcast earlier, this has nothing to do with feminine energy or masculine energy. I'm being myself and I'm being honest with you guys. We all can strive to be open about what we've been through and what we learned from it. That's owning yourself. That's masculine. And I think for us men, it's like we all can learn from our mistakes and stuff that we've been through. And I'd rather people understand that you can't love somebody if you're not in love with yourself. And not in a braggadocious way. Like I was mentioning earlier, how can you be with somebody if you're not healed? And we're about to wrap these up in a couple of minutes, but yeah, I just wanted to say thanks because this has been very cathartic for me. And I hope, and maybe you can tell me if I have, but I feel like I really made more of myself for the better because of this experience.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about building yourself.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong in building yourself up. Like I said, there's victory in defeat. You just have to know where that boundary is for victory. And at the end of the day, I've won in every defeat that there is. Like even in wrestling, like I've been doing it for 15 years, and it's not bragging, but it's the fact that I've been doing it at a point where nobody believed that I could do it.
Right.
To the extent that I could. And have I been put up with stuff over the last 3 or 4 years? You damn right. And has it been to a point where I have made, mistakes and things like that? Yeah. I made mistakes, and I'm the first person to admit that I made a mistake. But how people and companies respond to me to the point where they act like I don't even exist here. And I was talking over the phone with one of my best friends, Josh Ramirez, and he's a stand-up comedian. And I said to him, I was like, dude, I have done almost, or if to not everything in New England that I possibly could. I've accomplished everything that most said I couldn't do. And it's like what Mike Greenberg says in his podcast when he says that his rare genius won't be appreciated until long after he's gone. And it's like what Jalen Rose says on Jalen and Jacoby, when he said that there are barriers that need to be broken that you don't necessarily realize that are there until long after you've already crushed it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, there's a lot of people there's a lot of people that will believe that I should not be here, and I look at it as it's a win because I've already done everything, and I'm still not done.
Right.
And at the end of the day, just like in relationships or in your careers, the only person that you have to prove it to is yourself. And the only person that you can definitively prove your value for is yourself.
Right.
And whether it's promotions or relationships, at the end of the day, it's all about value. And you value your worth, you value your time, you value your energy, and you value yourself. And never doubt yourself. And I think a lot of people, they doubt themselves because of their circumstances. And I think that that's wrong. Trust yourself, trust your judgment, and trust your heart, because at the end of the day, no matter what the situation is, you are still number one. And you don't need anybody to tell you that.
Right.
All you need to do is tell yourself that.
All right, man. Tony, we're about to put a ribbon on this bad boy. It's been a fun chat. Folks, you just got about almost an hour of real talk right there on relationships. Hope you guys take something positive out of that. And just like Tony just said right there, you are dictating the pace of your life. Nobody else. You got to do things on your own terms. Live the life that you want to live. Write your own story. You're on your own path. And for women or men, if that's what you prefer, that's cool. That's your prerogative. No matter who it is, if they validate your energy and your time, have them be part of your life. If not, don't be afraid to call it out. Because the more you're upfront with how you feel about something and you're getting straight to the issue, you're preventing things from festering, have somebody flake on you when it gets too real, like it happened to me. And again, just being led astray and being hoodwinked into a situation that wasn't right for you in the first place. I really appreciate the people that have done right by me over the years. And, we all been burned by people. We've all been betrayed by people, whether it's friends or relationships or being cheated on. We all went through it. I'm not unique to this situation. So I think this has been very educational for a lot of people. And I'm glad to share this story with you guys because it's made me a better person. I'm reminded by that every time I wake up in the morning. Because I'm living my life. I'm on my own. I'm doing things on my own terms, and nobody can take that away from me.
And it feels good.
And it feels good. So, Tony, man, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Tell the good brothers and good sisters where they can find you on social media. And if there's anything else you wanted to ask me, go ahead.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity because all you need is one. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and just, be real. I appreciate the forum that you've given to have me come on and just to share it with you and just real talk with the good brothers and sisters out there. Just to recap, my name is Tony S., referee Tony S., and if anybody gives you my last name, don't buy it.
Right.
You can follow me on social media, all platforms. There's only one, at referee Tony S., whether it be Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. Actually, not Facebook, because that's what my real name is. Only the good brothers know what that is. But follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat, but mainly Twitter and Instagram at referee Tony S. There's only one. And if there's any other ones that look like me or claim to be me, please report it. I do the TBD Wrestling Podcast with Matt McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at MattMcCool24 because like we talked about, it really is his show. I'm just trying to scrape by and pay the rent. But if you want to contact me at Referee Tony S, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. You can also, for booking and interview inquiries, with the exception of Josh Lopez, because he already knows how to get my attention, you can send me an email at refereetonys@gmail.com. Serious inquiries only. That is for wrestling promotions, for booking and or interview inquiries. That's refereetonys@gmail.com or Referee Tony S on Twitter. That's how you can get me. But I really do appreciate it, and for the opportunity to come on here and just talk shop with Josh Lopez. And just as a final thought, if you find people in your circle, good brothers or good sisters, they're really hard to find these days. Please hang on to them, and do not be afraid to tell people that are close in your life how much that you appreciate them and how much you value them. Because if anybody knows that tomorrow is not guaranteed, it would be me. So just appreciate the good people in your life now, because they may not be here tomorrow. And it just means a lot more to just appreciate them now. So, but like I said, I really do appreciate it. And Josh has been on our show, TBD Wrestling Podcast. Please subscribe to the TBD Wrestling Podcast wherever you can get your podcasts. Josh has been on our show. We are looking forward to having Josh on our show as well as having the good brother of operations, Derek Stoughton, on as soon as Matt McCool decides to get off bed rest and book you guys for our show. But we really do appreciate it. And as a side note, I do want to put over Josh's podcast, because I will admit that the "What the hell is wrong with AEW" segment is the first thing I go to every week.
Oh,
I you hear, the first thing you hear is Derek Stoughton going, "Okay, what the hell is wrong with AEW?"
Right.
Let's start with, and it is the segment among segments that is above the man among men, or even the monster among men.
Yes.
So, but definitely check out what Josh is doing, whether it be Pro Wrestling Transcriptions or his podcast. But what we do here, we support each other. We're under the same umbrella, even though, we may be under different sides of the hemisphere, but we all support each other, and that's what it's all about. So you want to get in contact with me, Referee Tony S, Referee Tony S on Twitter, or refereetonys@gmail.com if you want to book me, if you want to interview, or hey, if you know any wrestling promotions out there that want a credible and capable referee, with the exception of May 1st, 2021, then by all means, I am available. Serious inquiries only. But Josh, I appreciate it, and we'll definitely do this again, where we will do some more talking shop here.
Yes, sir. I want to thank Tony for hopping on the show as always. Support TBD. It's a really good show. I'm looking forward to the upcoming weeks when I can come on the rewind episodes.
It's going to be great.
Where Tony gets to pick out a match, and we could review it, and maybe I could do some live commentary as it happens. So,
you have no. Well, there are specific matches that I have already picked out for Matt and I to watch, but there is one match that I'm specifically saving for you to do a rewind with us.
Fantastic.
And it is long enough to the point where If you wanted to do, it's not that long, but it is long enough, decent enough where if you wanted to do commentary or just put in your own 2 cents worth, I think it will be given the Josh Lopez seal of approval.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for checking out this bonus episode of the Hoots Podcast. Subscribe to the podcast every single week. It comes to you free of charge anywhere you get podcasts from. Like Tony said, make sure to bookmark ProWrestlingTranscriptions.com and keep your eyes open. I may have an interview this weekend with Eddie McCabe, formerly known as Leon Stryker from the New Age Insiders.
You found him.
It's going to be the first time that me and Eddie have shared a mic together on a podcast. So I'm looking forward to that. I think we may be doing it tomorrow afternoon, but no guarantees. Eddie is a busy dude, but sooner or later, Eddie or Liam, whatever you want to call him, Eddie will be on the Hoots Podcast soon, so that should be a lot of fun. So for referee Tony, I'm Joshy. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. And remember, folks, be the authentic product that is yourself. We love you guys. Yes, sir.